I was never supposed to open that door, not after 38 years, not after all the warnings, not after the way he looked at me the very first time he mentioned it. But that morning, the house was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, wrong quiet, the kind of silence that makes your skin notice something before your mind does. And when I reached the end of that long upstairs hallway, the door was already slightly open, just an inch, just enough to tell me something had changed. My name is Margot. I'm 79 years old, and for 38 years I cleaned the same mansion. Every room, every staircase, every window, on table, lamp and floorboard. I knew that house better than I knew my own hands. Or at least, I thought I did. Because there was one room I was forbidden from entering, and when I finally stepped inside, I discovered that nothing in that house was what I had believed. I'll subscribe to the channel. Before I go on, what I found behind that door changed everything I thought I knew about that house. I started working at the Whitmore estate when I was 41. Back then I had just lost my husband. I needed work, quiet work, the kind where no one asked questions. The mansion stood on the edge of town, behind iron gates and old trees that seemed to lean inward as if they were guarding something. It was the kind of house people admired from far away, but rarely visited. Mr. Whitmore hired me himself. He was already an older man when I met him, tall, proper, always in dark clothes, always speaking softly as though the walls might overhear him. He wasn't rude. He wasn't warm either. He was the sort of man who thanked you without smiling. On my first day, he walked me through the house with a ring of keys in his hand. The mansion was enormous. A drawing room no one used. A dining room large enough for 20 people. A library that smelled like dust and leather. Guest rooms with curtains heavier than my winter coat. I remember thinking no one should live alone in a house that large. Then we reached the second floor. At the far end of the hallway, after the blue guest room and before the old nursery, there was a darker wooden door, older than the others. Scratched near the bottom, no decorative brass, no welcome about it at all. Mr. Whitmore stopped walking. He turned toward me, and for the first time, his voice lost its politeness. "Every room in this house is yours to clean," he said. "Except that one." I nodded. He stepped closer. "You are never to enter it, under any circumstances." I still remember the way he said it. Not angry, not dramatic, certain, like it wasn't a rule, like it was a boundary holding something together. I asked no questions. When you are a widow in your 40s trying to survive, you learn quickly that some jobs come with silence attached. And sometimes silence is part of what you are being paid for. So I cleaned the rest of the mansion 3 days a week, year after year. The kitchen, the silver, the upstairs rugs, the portraits in the hall, the windows that seemed too tall for human beings, and I stayed away from that door. At first it was easy. I barely thought about it. But old houses have a way of making secrets feel alive. Every now and then, while dusting the hallway table, I would hear something from behind it. Not often, just enough. A faint shift, a soft thud. Once, what sounded like glass touching wood. I told myself it was the pipes. Then one winter morning, maybe 6 years after I began working there, I heard something I could not explain away. A woman's voice, not clear, not a sentence, just a sound, soft and strained. I froze with the feather duster in my hand and listened so hard my ears hurt. Nothing came after that. When Mr. Whitmore walked past me a few minutes later, I almost asked him. Almost, But he looked exhausted that day, older than usual. He carried a tray with a teapot, a bowl, and folded napkins. He was bringing them upstairs himself. That struck me as odd. He never carried his own meals. He saw me looking at the tray and stopped. For 1 second I thought he knew exactly what I had heard. Then he only said, "You may leave the upstairs hall for last today." I said, "Yes, sir," and watched him continue toward the forbidden door. He unlocked it, stepped inside, locked it again behind him. That was the first time I understood something simple and terrible. Whatever was in that room was not just a memory. It was part of his daily life. After that, I began noticing things. He asked me to wash extra linens, though no guests ever stayed. He often requested warm water brought upstairs, but never allowed me to carry it beyond the hallway. Some mornings there were medicine bottles in the kitchen sink that had not been there the day before. I noticed he bought fresh flowers too, not for the dining room, not for the entrance hall. Small, pale flowers, the kind someone would place near a bedside. Still, I said nothing. Years passed, the world changed. My hair turned grey, my hands became lined and stiff. Children in town grew up and had children of their own. But inside that mansion, time held its breath. Mr. Whitmore grew thinner, slower, more fragile, yet he never once forgot that door, never once failed to keep it locked. And sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking, I caught an expression on his face I couldn't name. Not fear, not exactly grief, more like the look of a man trying to hold back the sea with his bare hands. By the time I was in my 70s, I had stopped believing I would ever know the truth. I came, I cleaned, I left. Some mysteries harden with age until they become part of the furniture. Then came that Tuesday in October. The sky was pale, the wind cold, and the front gate was already open when I arrived. That had never happened before. I remember pausing at the entrance, hand still on my coat, listening. No footsteps, no radio, no kettle whistling from the kitchen. I called his name. Mr. Whitmore. Nothing. The front door was unlocked. That had also never happened before. I stepped inside and felt the silence all over again. The mansion seemed to be listening. I set my bag down and walked through the first floor. Drawing room, empty. Dining room, empty. Kitchen, cold stove. 1 cup on the counter, untouched. "Mr. Whitmore," I called again. Still nothing. That's when I noticed it. Upstairs, at the end of the hallway, the forbidden door was open only slightly, but open. In 38 years I had never seen it open. Not once, not even by accident. My first instinct was to go back downstairs and call for help. My second was stranger. It felt like the house itself had been waiting for me to reach that moment. I climbed the stairs slowly, one hand gripping the banister. The hallway felt longer than ever before. At the end of it, I stopped. The door was open just enough to show darkness inside and the edge of a pale curtain moving in the draught. I should have turned away, I know that now. But after 38 years of silence, warnings, footsteps, trays, medicines, and half-heard sounds, I could not. I placed my hand against the door and pushed. It opened without resistance. What I expected I still don't know. An empty room maybe, a shrine, old belongings covered in sheets, proof that the man had never let go of his dead wife. That's what I had told myself for years, that the room belonged to someone he had lost, that he kept it closed because grief can turn ordinary people into guardians of strange rituals. I was wrong. The room was not empty, and it was not a shrine. It was a bedroom, yes, but not untouched. There was fresh water by the bed, medicine on the table, curtains half open to let in light, and in the bed, There was a woman. For a second I forgot how to breathe. She was thin, very thin. Her hair, once probably dark, had faded to silver white and spread over the pillow like dry silk. Her hands lay above the blanket, small and still, except for one trembling finger. Her eyes turned toward me slowly, not with surprise, with confusion, the kind of confusion that comes from waking into a life you no longer fully understand. I stood there frozen, my cleaning gloves still in one hand. She looked at me, as if trying to place me inside a broken memory. Then she whispered something. I stepped closer, without meaning to. "What did you say?" Her lips moved again. This time I heard it. "Anna." My throat tightened. I was not Anna. I had never been Anna. And in that moment I understood she did not know who I was at all. Behind me, a voice said quietly, "You were never meant to see her like this." I turned so fast I nearly stumbled. Mr. Whitmore was standing in the doorway. He looked weaker than I had ever seen him. One hand against the frame, his face pale, his breathing shallow. But there was no anger in him, only exhaustion and something else. Relief. "I'm sorry," I said, though my voice barely came out. "I thought something had happened. The door was open. I called for you." He closed his eyes for a moment and nodded as if none of that mattered now. Then he looked at the woman in the bed. "My wife," he said. I stared at him. No, that was impossible. Everyone in town believed his wife had died decades ago. I had heard it from neighbors, from the butcher, from women at church. Some said she died young, some said after a long illness. No one seemed to know exactly when, and he had never corrected them. "You told people she was dead," I said, before I could stop myself. His face tightened. I let them believe it. The woman in the bed turned her head slightly toward the window, distracted by a shaft of light on the curtain. Then she murmured again to no one I could see. Mr. Whitmore moved past me and adjusted her blanket with hands that were practiced and gentle. "She hasn't walked in 14 years, he said, "and most days she no longer remembers who I am." I looked around the room, the flowers, the medicine, the basin, the fresh linens, all those years. All those years he had been caring for her, in secret. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Why?" He didn't answer right away. Instead he sat in the chair beside the bed, every movement showing his age. When the memory started going, he said, "It was small at first, a forgotten name, a misplaced teacup, a story repeated twice in the same afternoon." His eyes stayed on her face. Then she began wandering, leaving the house, forgetting roads she had known her entire life. Once she stood in the garden for 2 hours in the rain because she didn't remember how to come back inside. I said nothing. She became frightened around strangers, then frightened around people she once loved. Doctors suggested care facilities, nurses, institutions. His jaw tightened at that last word. They spoke as if she were already gone. The woman shifted in bed and began pulling lightly at the blanket. He reached over immediately and rested his hand on hers. "She was my wife," he said, "not a body to be sent away because the world had grown impatient with her." I looked at him, and for a moment I understood his devotion. Then I looked at her again, at the room, at the door, at the life hidden from the world, and another feeling rose in me too, something heavier. "Did she want this?" I asked. That was when he finally looked at me, and for the first time in all the years I had known him, I saw shame. Not enough to confess everything, but enough to admit the question had a right to exist. "She wanted to stay home," he said, quietly. "That's not what I asked." His eyes fell. The silence that followed was longer than any silence in that house. had ever been. I stepped closer to the bed. There was a framed photograph on the table now that I hadn't noticed before, a younger version of the woman standing in sunlight, laughing at something outside the frame, alive in a way the bed no longer allowed, beautiful, certain, free. Something broke in me then, not because of what I saw, because of what I realized. For 38 years I had thought that Forbidden Room contained a secret from the past, but it didn't. It contained a person in the present, a whole life hidden upstairs while the rest of the world moved on. "Does anyone know?" I asked. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. The woman turned toward me again and squinted as though studying my face through fog. Then she smiled, a small, lost smile, and said, "You came back." I felt tears rise before I could stop them. Mr. Whitmore lowered his head. "She mistakes people," he said. "Sometimes she thinks I'm her father, sometimes a school teacher, sometimes no one at all." I swallowed hard. "How long has she been like this?" "A long time." "How long has she been in this room?" His voice almost disappeared. "Too long." That was the middle of the story, the part that should have explained everything, but it didn't. Because the real shock wasn't only that she was alive, it was that I could no longer tell whether the room had been built from love or fear. Maybe both. I stayed that morning, not as a housekeeper, as a witness. I made tea. I opened a window. I changed a pillowcase while Mr. Whitmore sat beside his wife, with both hands around a cup he was too tired to lift. Around noon he asked me to bring a box from the wardrobe. Inside were dozens of notebooks, her notebooks. Some pages were recipes, some were names of neighbours, some were little reminders, written in trembling handwriting. My blue sweater is in the second drawer. Margot? No, that was later. Anna visits on Thursdays. My husband likes 2 sugars, notebooks made by a woman trying to leave breadcrumbs for herself. I looked at him. "Who is Anna?" He stared at the bed. "Our daughter." I felt cold all over. "You have a daughter?" He nodded once. "Where is she?" He closed his eyes. "Gone." I thought he meant dead. Then he said, "She left when her mother became worse. She begged me to let professionals take over. She said I was not helping anymore. I told her if she walked out that door, she would not come back." My chest tightened. "She left anyway." He gave the faintest nod, so there it was, another twist buried inside the first. Not only had he hidden his wife, he had broken his family trying to keep her. Mr. Whitmore died 9 days later. A heart attack, they said. By then things had already begun to unravel. Social workers, lawyers, a daughter I never met arriving too late to say what could no longer be fixed. I was asked questions, I answered what I could, but even now, years later, I still don't know the full truth of that room. Was he a loyal husband who refused to abandon the woman he loved, or a frightened man who locked away what he could not bear to lose? Was that room an act of devotion, or a prison built from grief before grief had even finished its work? I still don't know. What I do know is this: some doors are not closed to keep strangers out. They are closed to protect the story someone has chosen to live inside, and sometimes when that door finally opens, what you find is not a monster, not a ghost, not a scandal from the past. Sometimes what you find is something harder, a love so damaged by fear, it no longer knows the difference between care and control. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments, was Mr. Whitmore protecting his wife or stealing what little life she had left? Because after all these years, I still don't know the answer.